Good morning. Our lecture for today is the third chapter in the research method for business students. Chapter 3, critically reviewing the literature based on the book 7th edition research method for business students for Sandra's al. The literature review is the most important aspect in the research methods. It's as the cornerstone during your research journey, and it will stay with you during all the research processing. So let's start with the learning outcomes from this chapter. By the end of chapter, you should be able to understand the importance and the purpose of the critical review, how to review the literature for your research project, and be able also to adapt perspective in your reading, know what do you need when writing your critical review. Moreover, to be aware of the range of primary, secondary, and tertiary literature sources that are available to provide to support your research. Be able to identify the keywords and to understand a literature search using a range of methods. So be able to evaluate the relevance, value, and sufficiency of the literature found that related to your research project. Be able to reference and the citation of all the sources that you obtained this information, and to understand what's meant by plagiarism. Be able to apply the knowledge, skills, and understanding to your research project. So the reason for reviewing the literature, why we are reviewing the literature, in order to conduct a preliminary search of existing material, to organize valuable ideas and findings, to identify other research that may be in progress, to generate research ideas. As the most important for you to start with good research idea that support your research question and objectives, and to develop a critical perspective for your literature review. Let's have a look in this nice diagram. So when we start with the research question and objectives, and then we define our parameters for our research, then we generate and refine keywords like human resource management, resource-based view theory, the organization outcomes or effectiveness, some keywords that to limit and to focus your research. You conduct the initial research, you obtain the literature, you write the reference that may you need to retain back to obtain some information, evaluate to what extent these sources are important and useful for your research. You record and reference to be able to look again on these references. So, and you generate and refine keywords, drafting review, and you define parameters and redefine again these parameters for your research, and the keywords that you generate initially, you need to define and refine again and again, and to go on this process again, to conduct research, obtain literature, evaluate more and more, to update and revise, draft, and redefine the parameters. We define parameters, redefine, and redefine again to be sure that we contain all the most important references and skills that help us in our study. And we generate more refined and precise keywords, and again another search, then to be able to write a critical review for the literature. And for that we have two approaches: the deductive that we mentioned in the previous lectures, that we start from the theory to the data, or inductive, to start from the data in order to build the theory. The key purposes: to further refine research questions and objectives that support your research questions and aims, to support your idea, to find recommendation for further research. As you went through some articles in such journal, you will find at the end of the, or in the conclusion of the article, that some recommendation for further research that the author was unable to find something or not sure about his finding. To avoid repeating work already undertaken. Sometimes you are interested in some idea, and when you look on the online or in the literature, reading some article, you find somebody already, they find something good and right in this aspect. So you need to find something new suitable for your research project. To provide insight into strategies and techniques appropriate to your research objectives also. So adopting a critical perspective when you are reading the text, reading the literature, conducting a dialogue with yourself and the author. Why the author is writing about these things? What about the finding that the author reached in his article? You summarize also what you have read, what you have found in this article. You look to make some notes that will provide you and make you able to return back to look again for these notes that you have. Comparing and contrasting, not just to read, to evaluate this idea, to criticize also, to be able to evaluate, to see what support your idea and what's against your idea, which supporting with data, enough data or not enough data also. The most important skills that the capacity, your capacity to evaluate what you read, that needs to have enough knowledge in the domain that you search in. The capacity to relate what you read to other information, to articulate, to make connection with different ideas and sources in the literature. So to ask yourself a question about the literature, when you have a lot of references, a lot of articles, a lot of theories and applications, why I am reading this? To start with the abstract. What's the author trying to do in writing this? How convincing is this? Does it make sense? It's logic, it's objective, subjective, bias, without bias. What use can I make of this reading to be beneficial for you? To include key academic words that you will find during your study, that the key words, that supply chain management, constructions, instrument development, to find the keywords that related to your article or to your research project. Demonstrate current knowledge of the area, that to cover all essential information, all the work or most of the good work done by good scholars in the domain that you like to research. Acknowledge the research of the others by citation and referencing. So is your literature review critical? From the book, there is a good checklist. Have you ensured that the literature covered relates clearly to your research question and objective, or just something irrelevant? Have you covered the most relevant and significant theories of recognized expert in the area? Some people, they are expert in human resource management, in chain supply command. So it's good to reference them. Otherwise, you didn't cover all the essential literature and background for your domain. Have you included up-to-date literature, or just we are in this year and you can cover 5 years before and not much 10 years, 25 years? What's the time? Have you referenced all the literature used in the format prescribed in the assessment criteria, that you start with the name, family name of the author, then the article, the name of the journal, the volume, the issue, and the pages, to let the others be able to go for further reading, further information that available in the reference. Another checklist, evaluate whether your literature review is critical. Have you shown how your research question relates to previous research reviewed, to articulate what's supporting your idea, what's against your idea? Also, how you justified clearly your own idea according to such theory and some research, some finding in some literature, where evidence is lacking, or have you justified your arguments by referencing correctly published research? Three common structures that for a literature review, maybe just in the background or just one chapter, or maybe more than one chapter. Even the literature review will be with you in all your journey of the research process, even in the conclusion. The key to critical literature review: demonstrate that you have read, understood, and evaluated your material, the articles that you have read. Link the difference idea to form a cohesive and coherent arguments. When you say, according to A, they found something like this, and according to B, in contrast, they find something like this, while I am supporting, or I try to find something different or similar to find other point of view. So the three types of literature review sources: the primary, the published and unpublished, the secondary and tertiary. So just look at the primary. It's from the reports, from the master thesis or doctoral PhD dissertation, from conference, company reports, unpublished sources, and some government publications. Or the secondary, from journals, from books, newspaper, from the media. Or tertiary, from the index or abstracts, which is the most important, catalogs, encyclopedias, dictionaries, biography, and etc. And you see, when you depend in the tertiary, it's increasing level, increasing time to publish, even depends on the primary, increasing level of the details. The journals, the periodical, serials, magazine are published on regular basis. Vital literature source for any research. Let's see, for journal of business research, or journal of operational management, or human resource management review, Elsevier, Web of Science, Science Direct, which type of journal that you are looking for. Referred academic journals that reviewed by editors and peers, academic prior to publication. It's for expert. Sometimes you'll find the language is more professional, not easy to be understand unless you have the prior knowledge about the subject. Professional journals such as People Management, produced for their members, like CIPD, Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development. They contain mix of news related to items and articles, more details, and other trade journals, because maybe have some good ideas about innovation, about the latest aspects of technology that may support your research or guide, give you good ideas for research. Moreover, the books, they have a lot of nice literature and good reference to obtain the literature. Newspaper, sometimes they announced about good business and government statistical information that will give you some hints. Be careful when using newspaper, as sometimes it bias about the position, subjective, other than being objective. Reports from governmental organization or NGOs, non-governmental organization, or some specialized organization. Even it's not easy to get access for these reports. Sometimes it's not available on the online. Conference proceeding, sometimes specialized conference about human resource management, about the application of IT, computer technology. Some conference, they have some good papers presented by scholars. So, and it's sometimes it have a website to be able to look for this literature in this website. They have full papers presented at the conference. The thesis, You go for the library of your institute, your university, you'll find some thesis, some good thesis evaluated by professional jury, some thesis available online also. That's the main sources of the literature that you can have to plan your research strategy. As we know, and most of the people agreed, that literature review is considered as a time consuming. It will take a lot of time. And sometimes it will be like overloading, that you have more literature than you need. And some of this literature is not much relevant or related to your research subject. The literature search strategy: write down parameters of your research to be more precise, to be more focused, to move from general to specific. Discuss with your supervisor also. So to define the research parameters, generate keywords like electronic human resource management, human resource management perspectives, outcomes, organization outcomes, something relevant, that to make more precise search in the literature. Discuss your research with others, make some brainstorming for the idea, construct relevance tree to move from general and sub-branches to be more specific. Use computer software, you can do so. So let's have a look on some parameters. What type of language of the publication you are looking for. Maybe the English is not your mother tongue language, so you find something to read in other language and then translate or look for another language. Your subject of the area: marketing, human resource management, organization behavior. What the business sector: service, manufacture. Geographic area: about Europe, Middle East, America. Publication period: you look for the last 10 years publications. The literature type: referred journals and books. And then to create, as we mentioned, your keywords. It's important this stage to read about the articles by the key authors or keywords in order not to have much work than you need. Define your subject matter and to suggest appropriate keywords. Contain references to author that maybe you need to look for also. To ensure about the review article, your project supervisor will guide you also. Another potentially useful source of reference is dissertation, as we mentioned, or thesis in the library of your university. So when you generate that keywords, that will help you to catch which is the most important. The identification of keywords or research term is the most important part of planning your search for relevant literature to cover most the good works done by the good scholars. And the discussion: to discuss your research with others face-to-face, by email, to get some recommendations, some good ideas. Maybe you obtain new ideas and approach that will improve the quality of your research. Initial reading, maybe from dictionary, just to define what's the human resource management, to have the definition from different sources, from encyclopedia, Wikipedia, from some books, from the dictionary, to know the exact meaning of the keywords that you are looking for. And how to search in the internet for the definition, as we mentioned, useful for a quick reference, helping to define your keywords also. Approach: that searching tertiary literature sources, obtaining relevant literature, scanning and browsing secondary literature, searching using the internet also. Searching using tertiary literature, that to ensure that the keywords: human resource management, HR, efficiency, effectiveness, resource-based view, that match controlled index language. When you are looking in the online or digital library in your university. Search appropriate printed and database sources also. Note precise detail used, including search setting. Note that the full reference of each search found. The printed resources, also database, scanning and browsing and searching the internet. You see, when you start search, if it's relevant, it's matching your keywords, so you keep going and access the internet. Otherwise, you modify. Maybe like some words, behavior, it will different written between American and British, will have some different letters. And evaluating the literature. This is the most important. The information that you find, you can articulate which one is supporting your idea, which one is contrast, which one is completely different, which to refer later on. Assess relevance and value and assess sufficiency. So when you are reading the literature, you need to record and to make some biographical records to be able to return back and to see how to return back to all these references. As we mentioned, a brief summary of the content of the research, to have to make some small writing to remind you about the major idea or the main idea of the research. As we mentioned, biographic details, brief summary, supplementary information also, and to avoid stealing materials from other sources, to reference everything or submitting material written by another, copying material without quotation mark, or rephrasing, paraphrasing material without documentation, because it's the more risky and unethical things that may be considered as plagiarism. And we reach the summary. To set the research in the context from the literature review, leads the reader into later section of the report, and begins at general level and narrow and more specific during your research, to set the research in the proper context and to lead the reader into later sections as the map road began at general level and narrow to specifications. A literature search requires three main categories of sources that we mentioned, and define research question and objectives. That's the most important. And to define the parameters that fit your research strategy and what kind